how horrendous you act, once you receive that status of victimhood, everyone must understand. And that was the thing for me that I thought was...
She does is that she studies people. She's not a good actress, but she is a trained one, right? She's been doing it her entire life. And there is no doubt that she studied Princess Diana.
There are scandals, and then there are Meghan Markle scandals. The kind that don't just trend, they explode across the internet like a digital grenade. And this time, it wasn't a royal expert, a tabloid, or a so-called insider stirring the pot. No, the spark came from someone who has never been shy about speaking her mind, Candace Owens. Now, Candace isn't exactly known for subtlety. In fact, if subtlety were a sport, she'd get disqualified in the first round. And when it comes to Meghan and Harry, she treats them like the Super Bowl of hypocrisy, prime entertainment, prime criticism, prime I told you so.
Husband Harry didn't get a look in. The runaway royal, not even mentioned as Bridezilla, looked back on the memorable moments since she walked the aisle on May the 19th, 2018. A magical day throughout which the sun shone brilliantly against a cloudless, bright blue sky.
So the moment the old debates about Meghan's pregnancy resurfaced, the internet conspiracies, the side-by-side photos, the overanalyzed clips, Candace Owens practically ran onto the stage like, "Oh, we're doing this again? Wonderful! Let me grab my microphone." And that's how it began, the latest wave of speculation, drama, and viral chaos, all centered around Meghan Markle's pregnancy, arguably one of the most dissected pregnancies in modern celebrity history. There are people online who still, and I mean still, insist something didn't add up, as if they've been sitting at their laptops for 5 straight years with magnifying glasses, freeze-framing every moment Meghan ever touched her stomach. Candace didn't start those theories, not even close, but she absolutely revived them, waving them around like evidence boxes in a courtroom drama. She leaned into the commentary with that classic, "I'm not saying it's true, but I'm definitely saying it loudly enough for millions of people to hear" tone. And the internet? Oh, it loves chaos. It gobbled it right up.
That wasn't yesterday. No, that was 4 years ago. There's still a whole life, a real, authentic, fun life that's happening.
People began resurfacing the same moments that fueled conspiracy threads years ago. That clip of Meghan bending down in heels with the flexibility of a seasoned yoga instructor, online theorists screamed, "A pregnant woman could never." The rest of the world replied, "Actually, many can." But arguments never stopped people who are committed to a narrative. They continued digging. Then you had the photos. Those notorious photos where Meghan's belly appeared different sizes in different outfits. Camera angles? Clothing structure? Lighting? Nope. For certain corners of the internet, that was far too logical. Instead, they insisted it was part of some grand royal cover-up, as if Meghan and Harry spent every morning deciding which belly to wear like accessories. And who could forget the coat moments? The ones where she wore a bulky jacket that exaggerated her silhouette, followed by a sleek dress that minimized it? People zoomed in, screenshot after screenshot, convinced they had uncovered something monumental. Experts shrugged, stylists shrugged. Candace? She raised an eyebrow and said, "Well, the internet is noticing a pattern." But what really fanned the flames was her commentary about Meghan's secrecy. She pointed out how the Sussexes refused the traditional hospital photo op, how the birth announcements were handled differently, how everything felt controlled, curated, and cloaked in PR fog. And that secrecy, fair or not, gave critics endless ammunition.
Appreciation for the royals, right? It's something that Americans don't really jive with. It never made sense to me, but I fell in love with it.
Candace Owens knows her audience. She knows how to turn skepticism into a monologue. So she leaned into it with that signature combination of sarcasm and righteous indignation. She said things like, "Every time Meghan answers one question, she creates 5 new mysteries." Or, "If transparency were a job requirement for royalty, Meghan Markle would have been fired in week 1. And then came the moment that sent the discussion into orbit. Candace paused during her commentary, stared directly into the camera, and said, "Look, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm telling you that Meghan Markle has built an entire empire on controlling the narrative. So when people start asking questions about her pregnancy, and she gives them nothing but polished PR speeches, what do you expect? Silence breeds suspicion." That clip alone caused a meltdown. Supporters furious, critics thrilled, neutral observers grabbing popcorn, TikTok creators making reaction videos within hours. And you know Candace wasn't going to leave Harry out of it. She never does. She brought him right into the crossfire, calling him a lost prince, a grown man turned spokesperson for Meghan's emotional monologues, and her personal favorite, a royal escapee who swapped duty for daytime TV interviews.
To just be a human. Do you know what I mean? I've never seen this sort of. I've never seen someone that struggles to just give us like one strip of authenticity. Because I know other women who are listening to this podcast.
She suggested that Harry blindly defends Meghan no matter what, which only makes the internet speculate harder whenever something strange pops up. Because when people ask questions, and Harry reacts like every question is a personal attack, it fuels curiosity rather than stopping it. And that's the real issue here: the secrecy, the defensiveness, the carefully crafted narrative that leaves just enough gaps for conspiracy-minded people to fill in the blanks with whatever they want. Candace Owens simply took those blanks, scribbled her commentary over them, and sent it back to the internet wrapped in her signature, "I'm just asking questions, bow." The internet did the rest. Old footage resurfaced, old screenshots resurfaced. Entire threads that had been dormant for years suddenly reawakened like someone yelled, "Rise." People were analyzing everything from her maternity wardrobe to the angle of her hand placement to how fast she walked in public. It got obsessive, it got nitpicky, and it got loud. And in the middle of all this noise, Meghan Markle didn't say a word, not a statement, not a denial, not even a vague PR line about focusing on positivity. And Candace Owens, of course, noticed. She said, "Funny how Meghan Markle gives interviews about everything except the things people actually want clarity on." That line alone sparked another wave of speculation. Because whether people love Meghan or hate her, everyone knows one thing: silence always makes the story bigger.
And she's been a social climber from the beginning. She married somebody the first time to socially climb. And for her, Harry was just an entry ticket.
Candace takes a breath like she's preparing to launch a missile, and the studio goes silent again. You can almost hear production assistants behind the camera mouthing, "Oh no," because they know what's coming next. She leans forward, locks her fingers together, and her voice drops into that dangerous calm she only uses when she's about to dismantle someone's entire public image. She says Meghan has this habit, this pattern, of crafting narratives that place her as the universal center of suffering. And the pregnancy storyline, she suggests, is just another version of that same script. Meghan as the misunderstood heroine, and anyone who questions anything as the villain. Candace doesn't even need to raise her voice. She just lets the implication hang heavy, like she's inviting the audience to put the puzzle pieces together themselves. But she doesn't stop there. She dives into what she calls Meghan's convenient contradictions. One moment, Meghan wants privacy so strict it could challenge a CIA bunker, and the next, she's submitting an Oscars-level monologue about her unique struggle into the public sphere. Candace points out that the tighter Meghan tries to control the narrative, the more suspicious people become, and that suspicion naturally spilled into the pregnancy conversation. She mentions how, in the real world, people don't scrutinize a woman's pregnancy unless the circumstances around it are, her word, odd. She reminds viewers that it wasn't critics who sparked the debate, but the countless clips and photos that circulated on their own. The folding belly photo, the exaggerated bump one day, the barely there bump the next. The way Meghan would allegedly cradle her stomach even when simply turning around, almost like she wanted cameras to be sure to catch it from every angle. Candace says that once people saw the inconsistencies, the floodgates opened. Viewers online paused videos frame by frame, zoomed in, compared shadows and angles, and started asking why things didn't line up. She claims Meghan's team did themselves no favors by dismissing every question as bigotry instead of addressing the bizarre optics. Candace argues that sometimes avoidance does more harm than direct answers. And she goes further, talking about the infamous clip where Meghan sits down and the bump appears to shift in an unnatural way. Skeptics called it a collapsible belly. Candace says she didn't invent those comments, she's just acknowledging they exist. She even jokes that Hollywood prosthetics have looked more convincing, and that alone kept the conspiracy alive. But the part where she really digs in is when she raises the contrast between Meghan's pregnancies and Kate Middleton's, not in terms of personal choices or style, but in terms of transparency. Kate walked out of the hospital hours after giving birth, tired, yes, but undeniably present. No mystery, no drama, No carefully controlled photo releases, no vanishing acts, just reality. Candace says that when people compared the two approaches, Meghan's secrecy felt like it was begging for speculation.
Follow the royals. Now, I don't care at all for the Harry and Meghan thing, except for the political undertones of somebody saying, I'm not liked, therefore it's because I'm 20.
And then Candace pivots, almost theatrically. She says the real issue isn't whether Meghan used a surrogate or not. It's the way Meghan allegedly weaponized emotion, sympathy, and identity politics to block any form of conversation. Candace argues that a simple, straightforward explanation from the beginning could have prevented years of theories. But Meghan, in her view, prefers to create clouds around everything, and then blame everyone else for wondering what's inside them. You can see the comments scrolling furiously on screen during Candace's segment, half viewers clutching their chests in shock, the other half nodding like she just said what they've been thinking all along. Then she touches on Harry, because of course she does. She says Harry enabling all of this only adds fuel to the fire. She calls him Hollywood Harry, and says he traded the disciplined clarity of palace life for the echo chamber of celebrity culture, where every emotion becomes a spectacle. Candace suggests that instead of calming the chaos, Harry amplifies it. He reacts emotionally, defends Meghan emotionally, and attacks critics emotionally, never with facts, never with evidence, but always with outrage. And she argues that the more aggressively he shuts people down, the more invested they become in their own doubts. Candace claims Meghan and Harry had the opportunity to handle everything with grace, but instead chose confrontation, secrecy, and moral superiority. She says that combination is the perfect recipe for skepticism. People don't trust what feels curated, controlled, or overly dramatic. They trust transparency. And that lack of transparency, she says, is why the pregnancy theories never died. Now, normally this is where Candace would start wrapping up, but this particular topic seems to ignite her. She shifts gears again and begins talking about how Hollywood uses carefully crafted illusions all the time: props, doubles, prosthetics, publicity strategies, and how Meghan spent enough time in that world to understand how powerful image manipulation can be. Candace doesn't accuse her directly. Instead, she frames it like she's simply acknowledging why people found it plausible. If Hollywood could convincingly age Brad Pitt 50 years in Benjamin Button, people figured a well-made silicone pregnancy bump wouldn't exactly be cutting-edge technology.
Because Spotify lost so much money on them, and you remember one of the executives came out and said they quite literally have no talent, but worse.
She even brings up interviews where Meghan claimed she was boldly breaking royal tradition by keeping the birth plans private. Candace mocks this by saying it wasn't breaking tradition, it was breaking logic, because secrecy often creates more problems than it solves. She emphasizes that people's questions aren't misogyny, they're confusion. Confusion created by Meghan's own choices. And then comes the moment that sends social media into a meltdown. Candace says in her bluntest tone yet that Meghan's narrative didn't add up, and that whenever Meghan Markle says, "This is my truth," it usually means, "This is the version of reality I prefer you to believe." The studio audience reacts loudly to that one. Even the host tries to cut in, but Candace barrels forward. She reminds viewers that speculation isn't the same as accusation, and that most of the world is simply reacting to the visuals Meghan herself presented. Candace argues that if you want the world to stop questioning you, you first have to stop giving them so many questions to work with. The energy in the room shifts, tense, electric, as if everyone realizes she's just set the stage for an even bigger explosion. And she has, because everything she's said so far is only the buildup. What she's about to unleash next is where the real firestorm begins.